Hello, friends. You are listening to The Arc, a bonus series in the Beyond the Verse podcast lineup where members of our in-game organization, Soul Provision, will get together once a month and discuss a book voted on by our community that helps us satisfy the space lore itch before Squadron 42 and Star Citizen releases. You can join Soul Provision at www.robertspaceindustriescom/orgs/provision. We dive beyond our verse after a quick word from our sponsors. Hello, friends, and welcome to The Arc. This is the very first episode of our version of like a book review over in Soul Provision. So a couple of weeks ago, actually at this point, a couple of months ago, we were kind of ideating on ways to engage the community outside of the game. And there was obviously this desire for lore. You've heard about in the podcast where we talk about the ship manufacturer lore, and there was this desire to get into that piece. Well, I wanted to begin to dive into Squadron 42 and Star Citizen's lore. And if you just go to the website and start reading the games and their descriptions, there's not a lot to go off of. Sure, you can dive into the apps like Galactopedia and surmise what the games are about, but the lore is kind of lacking at this point as far as what is Squadron 42 truly about. So I started asking, and this actually started on social media. I started asking, like, what are some books that you are reading? And this is general to followers and the general public. What are some books that you're reading that you'd recommend us getting into while we wait for Star Citizen and Squadron 42? And our beloved Jake Bradley, community manager, one of the community managers for CIG, actually recommended this book, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I knew nothing about it, didn't know any history, but I decided to go ahead and ask my community, Soul Provision, if we wanted to start kind of a book club. And there was a resounding interest. Now, what's funny about this is I gave us a month to read Red Rising, and it got delayed many times because life happens, right? So between Amazon and Prime Day, we kept pushing it back and back and back. So here we are, finally, about a month and a half to 2 months later, reviewing our first book. Again, this is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So I wanted to read real quick. I wrote an executive summary. For those of you listening who have no idea what the hell this book is, I'm going to read a little bit of a summary that I wrote, and then I'm going to go into the main events. And I think that will encapsulate everything you need to know before me and one of our Soul Provision members get into our reactions to the book. So I expect this to be about an hour. We might go over, but this is a general conversation about a book, what it means, how it ties into Star Citizen. Hope you enjoy. So here we go. First off, let's get into the lore of The Arc. So I'm calling our book review, our book club, The Arc. And so straight from Star Citizen's Galactopedia, The Arc is a vast library, an archive station located in the UEE. The TIAC system specifically. The largest library and archive in the UEE, the Arc houses records, curated information, and artifacts pertaining to the accumulated knowledge of all known spacefaring civilizations. The initial concept for the Arc was presented to the UEE Senate in 2794 by then Diplomatic Secretary Marshall Leon as a neutral information repository for the benefit of all cultures and civilizations. It was approved the same year and completed in 2800. The Arc Galactopedia and Arc Star Map are its two most utilized resources. So again, in game, the Arc is the source of all knowledge. It's where you go to find the archives. And so I thought it was a telling name. And so one of my first questions I'm going to ask our beloved Soul Provision member is how they feel about it being called the Arc. So we'll get into that here in a second. But here we go. The executive summary for Red Rising. Red Rising is the first book in Pierce Brown's sci-fi series. It introduces readers to a dystopian future where society is divided into a rigid, color-coded caste system. At the bottom are the Reds, miners who believe they are sacrificing their lives to make Mars habitable for future generations. At the top are the Golds, the ruling class that lives in opulence and controls every aspect of society. The story follows Darrow, a young red miner whose life is shattered when he learns the truth that Mars has been habitable for centuries, and the Reds are nothing more than enslaved laborers. Driven by grief and a burning desire for justice, Darrow joins the Sons of Ares, a rebel group determined to overthrow the oppressive regime of the Golds. Darrow undergoes an intense and painful transformation called carving to become a Gold, infiltrating their elite institute to dismantle the system from within. At the institute, he must navigate a brutal and treacherous environment where students engage in deadly war games to prove their superiority. Here, Darrow forms alliances and rivalries, including with the charismatic Mustang and the ruthless Jackal. Throughout his journey, Darrow struggles with his identity and the morality of his actions. He is torn between his loyalty to his fellow Reds and the need to play the role of a Gold to achieve his goals. The book delves into themes of power, sacrifice, and the complexities of rebellion, questioning that one is willing to do for freedom and justice. Red Rising is a gripping tale of revenge, political intrigue, and personal transformation, setting the stage for broader conflict that promises to challenge the very foundations of the society that Pierce Brown has meticulously crafted. Let me actually pause there before I get into the main events. We are joined today by Jenner Darr, again, one of our beloved Soul Provision members. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good. The executive summary, what did I leave out? I feel like that captured most of the elevator pitch you would give somebody, but would you add anything to the kind of the overall sentiment of what Red Rising was?
Having read the book, no. Because I think that's just enough to hook somebody in.
Yep, absolutely. So, yes, I wanted to make sure I didn't go any further, but I'm about to ruin everything. So, spoiler alert, if anything I said up to this point interests you, I would pause the podcast, come back at a later date, because what I'm about to get into now is the main events. These are the 5 things I bucketized that happen in this book. So again, you've been warned. The next couple of minutes is going to ruin everything for you. So let's go through the main events, a recap of the roughly 380 pages, I think, that this book is. So number 1, the discovery of the truth in Eo's death. So one of the main characters at the very beginning, a very short-lived main character, is Darrow's wife, Eo. So Eo, I don't know, exists for like a chapter, Jenner. Like I don't think she lasts much longer than the first couple of chapters, right?
Yeah, I think the second chapter is where we see her. Are we doing full spoilers at this point?
Oh yeah.
All right, okay.
We're about to ruin
it. Yeah, I think it's by chapter 2, or maybe the beginning of chapter 3. Eo is no longer with us in the physical form.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so to Jenner's question, here we go. So the discovery of truth in Eo's death, she's a gunner. So Darrow, a young red miner, lives a harsh life beneath the surface of Mars, believing his work is for the future colonization of the planet. His wife, Eo, shows him the hidden truth that Mars is already habitable and populated by an elite class of Golds who oppress the lower classes. Eo is executed for singing a forbidden song of rebellion, igniting Darrow's desire for revenge and change. And Jenner, it is a pretty sick execution. Like the fact that he has to hang on her legs to make sure her neck breaks is pretty dark for an execution.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with setting up that atmosphere, because in the previous chapter we hear of his father being executed in the same manner.
That's right.
And the author goes through very explicit detail of not just the visual impact, but the psychological impact that leaves on the community and the family members involved.
Yeah.
And I remember listening like, oh my gosh. And, it makes sense, right? We're dealing with Mars and the atmosphere and gravity and all that. And I'm like, that's a really interesting way to encapsulate the science fiction of it.
Yeah.
And then you go in the next chapter and it's like, and now he's doing that to his wife. It's just like, hold on, what just happened here? Like, that's where the book really started to kind of hook me with what it was going to do with its characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the same thing. It was dark to read, but then once you started thinking about exactly what you called out, the gravity piece, it showcased Pierce Brown's attention to detail. I wouldn't have thought about that. Like, I'm not creative in that sense to be like, oh yeah, the gravity is less on Mars, so you'd have to like, I don't know, hangings don't work whenever your body is floating. So the fact that they required loved ones to grab the feet and hang until the neck broke is pretty damn dark. But again, I go into that detail because it's showcasing kind of the rest of the book and how Pierce Brown really does focus on those details. So let's get into the second main event. So Darrow's transformation. I personally thought this was super interesting. So Darrow's rescued by the Sons of Ares. He's kind of subject to the same execution. He goes and he wants to bury his wife Io, and so removes Io from the noose and takes her out to a field, gets caught. And of course his penalty is death right at that point. And so he's also up for execution. I guess this piece I don't necessarily need to ruin or spoil for you, but he's I don't know, he's killed, but he's not. He ends up surviving the hanging. And he ends up getting rescued by the Sons of Ares, and this is a rebel group fighting against the oppressive regime. He undergoes a grueling transformation process to become a gold. Again, this is called carving, where they basically give him an entirely new body. They replace his eyes, his ears, his limbs to go from a meek red to a godlike gold. So I guess my question for you, Jenner, very high level, what were your thoughts on the overall carving? This was 2 or 3 chapters worth of him becoming this gold, the entity of who he hated most. How would you respond to that?
Again, it goes back to, you even see the psychological struggle he's dealing with. We know that he's in immense pain from the way the author is writing it. And even though he's, being given some medicine and some drugs to kind of help with the pain, he's still dealing with it. But just the psychological, because you have this written montage basically, right, at every adaptation that's happening, and he's seeing the form in the mirror, and he's, training and learning how to use the new body and perfecting the muscle structure. And there's just a psychological mindset of, you're looking in the mirror and what you're seeing is not you. It's everything you've hated.
Yeah.
I thought it was really well written. And again, it's getting you in the mindset of what we're going to get into later in the story of what this character must prepare himself for, because as much as he needed to change physically to fit into that society, he had to change a lot psychologically to fit in.
Yeah, absolutely. And intellectually, right? So not only was he physically destroyed and altered, he also had to learn history, of shit that he never even understood. This is the gold history. This is the history of things that he didn't even know existed before his execution. So yeah, to go through all of that, the physical transformation, the intellectual transformation, and honestly, it kind of speaks, not to get completely prophetic here, but it speaks to human nature, that when you have nothing left to lose, that's when you're at your most dangerous. Dude didn't care. He didn't care at all. Hey, what's up, Talon? Well, welcome in.
What's up?
So we're right in Darrow's transformation. We're talking about how he had to go through the physical changes and the intellectual changes. So you haven't missed much, Talon.
Oh, I haven't even read the book yet.
Oh, perfect. Well, this is great. You can ask those general questions then. It'd be awesome to get you spun up, man. So, but yeah, to go through the intellectual changes as well, he's lost everything. His wife, his whole life. Everybody thinks he's dead at this point, right? That's when you're at your most dangerous. And so I think he had nothing else to lose. He's going to go through whatever physical issues. And honestly, I thought it was poetic how he kept referencing Io, his wife, the entire time, right? Like that's his rock, and it's going to play a very important part at the very end when we talk about Mustang. But his reliance on the idea of his wife and the belief that his wife had. And so let me pause here real quick, and this is for Jenner. But how much of a role do you think Io and her vision and her fight that she charged Darrow with, how much do you think that really played into his transformation?
I think 100%. I think there was somewhat of just that human desire for revenge and justice, right?
Yeah.
That, me being a husband would feel if something was done to my spouse. But when you go back to the night before and everything that led up to, Io's tragic end, like she's already charged. She's already feeling the fires of rebellion, so to speak. And she's sharing this with her husband, and he's kind of looking at her like, you're crazy. Like we cannot hope to dream to go beyond that. And why would you? We're taken care of.
Yeah.
Almost like ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And you see, like, when she dies, his first thing is like, I'll just join her in death. I didn't stand up for her when I should, so I'll do this and they'll kill me.
Yeah.
And then we'll be together. And he goes through this almost crucifixion type, execution.
Yeah.
And like you said, so the man has faced death. What else does he have to lose now?
Yeah.
And his eyes are fully open, and he starts to see so much more, and it kind of clicks. And then that charge stays with him. And then, like we said, Io's written out of the book physically early, but she is such a pivotal character.
Yeah.
In his decision making throughout the rest of the book,
all the way to the last chapter. Like she's, and I haven't read the second or beyond books, but I can guarantee you she exists even then. Man, we're gonna get Talon motivated to read this, I promise. Like, but by the end of this, Talon, you're gonna be like, I'm on this. There's a lot of.
Need a
Go ahead.
Quick synopsis on what the book is about.
Yeah. So Reader's Digest version. Think the Hunger Games. So you got this like colored system.
Oh, man, there's so much in there.
Yeah.
It's so much. It's Hunger Games, system. Harry Potter, Game of Thrones. Like there's so much that you could make ties to.
Actually, that's a really good exercise. So Jenner, I went through the executive summary. Your turn. How would you describe this book?
So it was pitched to me, as we had talked before you started this. It was actually pitched to me before you'd brought it up a month or so before by a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he just went on about this great sci-fi series he started. And, I'm a child of the 80s. I love everything sci-fi. I cut my teeth on Star Wars, Star Trek, Firefly, So I'm like, okay, this is going to be awesome. And I get into it. And by like chapter 2, chapter 3, it's no more science fiction.
No.
I'm like, where's the space in my space book?
Right.
But it was definitely a lot of, like when you talk about the transformation that he had to go through, right? It was almost kind of cyberpunk.
Yeah.
There's very much, like you said, Hunger Games in there. There's this caste system even within the academy that we get to, right? Where they're being sorted into houses. And then next thing you know, it's reading like a medieval fantasy book. Yeah. For the remainder of the series. I think it was very well done.
Yeah. I'm looking at the year it was written. I think 2014. Yeah, it's 2014. So it's almost like Pierce Brown took like his favorite aspects from very popular sci-fi or very popular fiction. And so Talon, just I guess quickly, dude was raised in the mines. He was a Red. So he was raised in the mines. He's a hard worker, whatever. And his wife, Io, had this idea of like rebellion. We shouldn't be slaves. There's larger things at play. Like we should rebel. We're more than this. And so she ends up publicly singing this song of rebellion, and that gets her executed. And it's a very tragic, like in the first chapter, it's a very tragic execution. And so at this point, our main character Darrow has nothing else to live for. He's like, F it, I'm gonna do my thing. And so he ends up pulling her off of the noose and trying to bury her body. And in doing so, he's charged for death. So he's actually killed. And I don't know, Jenner, he dies like 4 times in this book. I feel like every other chapter he's dying. So he's executed. But there's this like rebellion group that ends up recovering his body, and they do what's called carving. They take his, small human body and end up giving him these godlike arms, limbs, eyesight, hearing. They end up teaching him the history of like the real Mars outside of mining, and they charge him with like, overthrowing the regime. And so the story now becomes him. It's very Hunger Games. He's been tasked to overthrow the regime, and so the rest of the book is what we're about to get into. We're going to get into the Institute, the rising of a leader, etc. So I think you're caught up at this point. I don't know, any questions before we move on?
I think you summed it up pretty good. So
okay.
Actually, I do have a question, though. This is about the org knife for tomorrow.
Okay.
Do you know how many moles we have in the org?
No idea. If I did a quick plug, or if I did a quick research, we did a poll a long time ago that if you had a mole, you would be there's a role that you would just elect into. So let me see.
I know that Marauder reached out to me earlier. I've got one to throw in the hat for tomorrow.
I was thinking about buying one.
Well, I've got one as well. So there's at least 2. If you want to buy one, I'm telling you, our org is at the point of needing multiple moles. So if you want, by all means, up to you.
Yeah, I was thinking about grabbing one in game. I'm actually
looking
at heading over there and getting it, but
let me see.
If we got at least 2, because usually our complement's usually about 10 to 12, maybe 14 people.
Yeah,
we can go with another one. Yeah, I'll grab one.
So it looks like we have 4, but some of these individuals don't usually show up for org night. So like Ruckus has one. I have one. Jenner has one. So there's 3. If you want to get a 4th one, yeah, by all means.
Oh, that, and it's a crew, properly fully crewed. It's a crew of 4 each.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, with a typical amount of people that we'd have, I don't know if you run escorts or scouts.
We will. Yeah, we absolutely will.
So yeah, 2 or 3 is usually good.
Yeah.
Escort / cameraman.
Hold on.
Camera. It's all about the screenshots, man. All about the screenshots.
Scout, so.
Yeah. Cool. All right, well, let's get into the Institute. This is the 3rd main event that happens in the book. Which, by the way, Talon, I'm recording a podcast, so if it feels like structured, that's why.
That would be why.
Gotcha. Yeah, that'd be why. Yeah. So the Institute. So I've got down like Darrow gains entry to the Golds Institute. It's a brutal academy where young Golds are pitted against each other in deadly games to prove their worth and leadership. Again, this sounds very much like Hunger Games. So Darrow forms alliances and faces ruthless adversaries, including the charismatic Mustang and the cunning Jackal. Darrow emerges as a strategic leader, demonstrating his ability to outwit and overpower his opponents. Now, what I just told you is like 3/4 of the book. So there's so much to unpack within what I just said. So you have what's called, oh, please, Jenner, is it called the passing? What's when he has to kill Cassius's brother? What's it called?
Oh goodness.
The passage.
The passage. I believe
the passage.
Is correct.
Okay, I think that's right. Okay, so the first thing that they have to do, they get their house, they get kind of voted on, and of course this is when my mind goes blank and like on the different names. So you have the proctors and the drafters. There you go. So the drafter is like your highest level gold. They're the owners of houses, and they say, you know what, I want this new recruit inside of House Apollo. I want this new recruit inside of House Mars. And so we have Darrow, who gets drafted, he gets picked into House Mars. And when he gets into the Institute, he meets his proctor. The proctor is like their in-game mentor, right? It's kind of a weird way of describing it, but we introduced to the Mars proctor, and one of the first tests is he's put into a room. Everyone in House Mars, everyone in all houses, are put into a room with one other person, and they're told only one person can leave this room alive. They are forced to kill on like day one of the Institute. And so this will make sense in a couple of minutes, but he gets put into a room. What is it Titus? No, it's not Titus. Julian. Julian is Cassius's brother. Yes. So he gets put into a room with Julian, a very meek, lesser individual. He kills him very easily. He gets...
And if I can point out real quick,
Please.
It's somebody that he had... For a Red coming into the Gold Society, it was one of the first friends he had started to make.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. He had an affinity for Julian. And so he's put into the room, and they had this conversation where they're like, are you serious? Like this is actually going to have to happen? And they do. They resort to their human, instincts, and they start fighting. And it's not much of a fight. Like Darrow is so much more athletically inclined and ends up killing Julian pretty easily. But what a rough day one of the Institute. Like,
well, the other thing too, and I don't know if you'd plan to go into this part of the passage
go for it.
Later on, but like, again, just, we're introduced to Red Society and what seems to be a normal life for them. And then we're kind of raw fed this Gold Society the same way as Darrow is getting it.
Yeah.
So like, we learned that the passage is basically a planned culling because, we now live in a society where there is no illness, there is no famine. We've reached the pinnacle of perfection, and they feel that too many people are living to adulthood. So it's a systematic planned culling, which is just, kind of a eye-opening to the gold mentality and mindset and disregard for human life.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't it didn't really impact me. I think I've seen enough movies, I've read enough books where like, okay, they had to kill to survive. All right. Not that big of a deal. But I think when you find out that like right after the passage, he ends up befriending this, I would say godlike. They're all godlike at this point, but this superior being whose name is Cassius. He's like the epitome of Mars. They're all going for this top level called the Primus. If you graduate the Institute as the Primus, like you can have whatever you want when you graduate. It's the world is yours, if you will. Well, it's between him and Cassius. Cassius is the superior being. He ends up befriending, for the most part, Cassius, and Darrow knows that he's killed Julian, who is Cassius's brother. But you spend the entire book where Cassius doesn't know. So Cassius has given, Darrow his allegiance. They're working together. They're accomplishing all these missions, all these strategic victories together. When the whole entire time, Darrow is struggling inside because he's killed his brother, and Cassius has no idea. Was there any part, Jenner? Was there any part in the book where, I don't know, do you think Darrow should have disclosed that he killed Julian at an earlier time, or do you think it happened when it needed to happen?
If we're looking at it from the mission that Darrow's there for, then no, he should have never disclosed, right? Because and that's what his character struggles with, is like, these are still all his enemies.
Yep.
So he's got this mindset like, I need this guy, and my success is built upon this friendship and this relationship. And because Darrow, who he is at his core, he still struggles with that. But no, I think he did right, by his overall goal by not revealing.
Yeah. Talon, what would you do if you were in this situation, you had to kill like a friend's brother to survive. Would you be the kind of person that immediately tells, like right after the passage, "Hey man, I'm so sorry. I had to murder your brother to survive," or would you have kept it to yourself? Did we lose Talon?
Hold on, I set my keybind
you're
for push to talk.
You're good, man.
Honestly, I would tell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad and brutal truth, but if the situation for survival is that dire that the death of another person, especially somebody that's close to a good friend of yours, is absolutely necessary, then it's honestly self-preservation takes over. So yeah, and I wouldn't want to hide it. Honestly, I'm the kind of person I couldn't hide it at all. It'd be very obvious so that, hey, where's my brother? But you survived. Bears got him? Yeah, no, I would tell him right off the bat. I would explain the whole situation regardless of what the outcome would be.
See, I'm actually really glad you said that, because honestly, Jenner, like I'm in that camp, but it needed to have been revealed like the second it all ended, because it was all fresh. Every single one of them went through the passage. Every single one of them had to kill somebody. So I think Darrow would have been a lot better off, like literally a minute later. Damn, I had to kill your brother, dude. I'm so sorry.
So let me play devil's advocate on this then. Let me ask you this, because I would agree with what you're saying. Like, if it's going to be revealed, it has to be in that room they all come into, after they've killed their other opponent. Do you think that had he done that and it had gone poorly, the proctors would have intervened at that point, since they weren't into the actual game yet?
See, I don't know, because I don't think Darrow was a threat yet. So what Jenner is getting, at is the proctors that I mentioned earlier. There's some bad apples, right? Like House Apollo. House Apollo's proctor is involved way more than they should be. They lean towards trying to get their own champions to win, and I think what Jenner is referencing is like, you get a lot of interference throughout the rest of the book. In fact, Cassius finds out that his brother was killed by Darrow because of House Apollo. They send I don't know if it's like a video or a message. I forgot what it was, but
So if you remember, when they go into the room and they're told that only one of them leaves, there's a ring that is set in the middle of the floor. And they have to come back out with that ring. We later find out that ring has a video recording device. That's right. And that's how they're keeping track. So that footage was taken from...
That's right.
From that ring's point of view, watching the murder.
That's right. Great pull. Yeah, so that's how he finds out. So, I don't know. I to answer your question, Jenner, I feel like Darrow wasn't really known yet. Like, I think intellectually he was maybe a threat because he was one of the top contenders for Primus, but he wasn't really well known across House Apollo to really have that the interference. But I think the if we want to get like profound here, I think the issue Cassius has is the months and months of friendship that him and Cassius developed, like Darrow and Cassius developed, and the trust and the back and forth that went, for him to never reveal. I think it's the hidden issue that causes the main issue.
It's a betrayal.
That's right.
From his point of view. And I think he even referenced, like, I knew he wouldn't make it. He was never the stronger. Mm-hmm. When he confronts Darrow, I believe he said something to that accord. So, yeah, I would agree with you that from his point of view, it's not that you killed my brother. It's that you've basically replaced him in my life and you never said anything.
Right. And
I was about to say the same thing as far as the whole fact that he didn't say anything about it. He kept it to himself, and then, as I'm hearing, he ends up basically replacing his role. I personally, I would feel like that was a deception on my end.
Right. Yeah, and the reason why we're diving into this so much is like, this is one of the main threads that is woven throughout the entire book. Like this is something that causes the ups and downs. In fact, Cassius kills Darrow. So this is the second time Darrow dies. Cassius fights Darrow, says, hey, it's time we meet, out in the field. He takes him up north into the woods. They fight. He ends up basically killing him. And that's where we don't meet Mustang. We actually met Mustang a little bit earlier. Mustang is part of a different house, House Mars and House. Oh damn it, Jenner. What house was Mustang in?
So I've got to preface this. I'm really bad with names.
I am too.
So I'm trying to remember what house they were.
I got this.
You know what? I got some Google right here.
Yeah, same here. I'll race you. Mustang is part of which house? Red Rising. Here we go. I guess House Augustus.
House Augustus, yep.
Yeah, because
she was the standing primus for it.
That's right, because her brother. Well, we'll get into that here in a second.
We'll get into that, yeah.
Okay, all right. House Augustus. That makes total sense. Okay, anyways, so we actually meet Mustang, female, very beautiful, kind of attractively wins over Darrow's heart early in the book. Again, she's stunning for him. They actually meet in battle. House Mars in that moment beats House Augustus, or at least her and her army in that moment. And then we kind of lose track of her. Not really a thing anymore. But as Darrow gets killed by Cassius, Mustang recovers his body. She ends up tending to him, brings him back to, as I say, brings him back to life. I don't know if resurrected is the right word, but she ends up helping him recover. And then it's this very quick, like within one chapter, she ends up bringing him back to life and recovering him. At the same time, she gets deathly ill and almost dies. And so now Darrow has to rescue her life. And I think the purpose is Pierce Brown is trying to create that relationship quickly. He's trying to make the readers understand Mustang and Darrow will be a thing, and we need to kind of expedite the process. So she rescues him, he rescues her, and he rescues her by getting medicine from his proctor. So the House Mars proctor comes down, gives him medicine. He ends up administrating that medicine to Mustang. And now we have the introduction of a relationship with Mustang. So I want to pause. Jenner.
Yes, sir.
High thoughts. I think this is one of my favorite questions. High thoughts. What would you do? Still loving EO, still missing EO, and having a physical attraction to Mustang.
So, two schools of thought here, and I'm probably going to get beat up on this. Somebody said to me many, many years ago, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. But that was something that I kind of struggled with this character through the story too. And again, we're dealing with this story where his wife's dying action is his motivation and what's moving him along. And we've also got to remember, he met Mustang before he was even in the academy.
Yep.
So she was introduced to him early on in a little interaction where he's kind of going through the motions of his transformation and learning Gold Society. So that seed gets planted early on. And even then, he comments about how stunningly beautiful she was, but she's also a gold. So he's also dealing with this tear in, I shouldn't even find her attractive. She's part of, the enemy. I think that we have to look at the other thing we haven't mentioned yet either is actually what this game is that they're playing and how long this game actually runs. There's a lot going on for a very long time where emotions kind of take over what your thought process is.
Yeah.
This is somebody that in this game were enemies and now they're both ostracized from their houses and they're relying on each other and they're saving each other's lives. Mustang was sick because by this point we're into winter and they're living in the woods. They don't have proper food. They don't have proper protection from the elements. They are literally trying to survive. We've gone from Hunger Games to Naked and Afraid here at this point. And there's that that connection that, you know, is kind of superseding everything else going on in their lives, their status, their caste, their previous commitments, right? Like, it's me and it's her, and we're together and we're surviving. I think that you're going to see emotions form in that.
Talon.
So I said a lot of words to not answer your question.
No. It's, dude, it's such a hard. I'm not even going to answer it. I want to let Talon answer first. But yeah, I mean, it sucks because I don't know, if you strip back emotion, his wife's dead. Eo's gone. So then you have to ask yourself, like, would Eo want you to move on? Like, would your wife, like, ask yourself this if you're listening to this podcast. If your wife or significant other dies, truly, would they want you to move on or stay single the rest of your life?
And I want to point out before you jump to Talon, she's also been dead for a while now, because even his transformation took a long time.
That's right. Yeah. It'd be interesting. I didn't do the research, but like, how long has Eo died before he truly starts falling for Mustang? And I don't know if there's like a limit, like it's got to be 8 months. Anything beyond 8 months is okay, right? Like, I don't know if that's going to answer the question, but I think Pierce Brown does a really good job of, like, at least for me, I'm reading it and I'm like, yeah, go for Mustang. Like, Mustang seems like she's a good option, and y'all are very similar. Like, I had no qualms until about maybe 3/4 of the way through, when he actually kisses her for the first time. I'm like, damn, I don't know, that felt wrong for some reason. It didn't feel right, because he's holding that flower, right? He's holding that flower that Eo had given him, and he's like, he just, you know, kind of forgets about it and moves on, and I don't know, it's tough. Talon, over to you. Kind of the same question. I don't know, man. Like, significant other passes away, you found yourself maybe the next best option. I hate saying that, but what do you do?
You raised the question just a minute ago. How long has it been since she's passed?
Yeah, that's fair.
So, because the thing is, it's like you said, from what I'm getting, the whole entire drive of why he's doing what he's doing is because of her death. The absolute brutal execution of his wife, the person that he loves with everything in his soul. Personally, like, there's attraction, yes, especially when you're in situations like that. Human beings tend to attract towards each other because emotions are high, emotions go within, especially dealing with the situation they're dealing with. But I could not see myself doing that, because the mission isn't over yet. So, and the whole reason you're doing what you're doing is for the dead wife, Eos.
Eo.
Yeah. So you're doing everything you can for Eos, and it hasn't been completed. Now, say once the mission's done, I could see moving on, because you finally put that last nail in the casket, so to speak, and you've buried it. You've avenged her. Everything is complete. The cycle is over. All right, it's now time to move on. But in a situation where it's still very much, like I said, she's the reason why he's going through this, I couldn't see leaving that behind. That would still be the top thing on my mind. And I mean, sex is sex, attraction's attraction, but there would never be, like, love or anything like that for me.
That's a really good point to bring up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so again, this is important. The Cassius killing of the brother, the Eo death, and the love for Mustang. These are all very important pillars that merit their own segments on this podcast. I think the next piece here is, okay, so the next step, you've got proctors that are jacking with the game. So unfairly, you've got special med bots, you've got special attention and tools and resources being provided. You end up finding out about this character called Jackal. All right, so Jackal's name gets thrown around. His proctor, so Darrow's proctor, is like, look, you're not going to survive against the Jackal. The Jackal is the god of gods. He's amazing. He's predicted to win this whole competition. He's going to take over the houses, so don't get too arrogant or positive, or you're not going to win this. It's going to be the Jackal. Well, long story short, Jackal is the son of, like, I don't know, the King of Golds. The title
as the governor of Mars.
Governor of Mars, yeah. So the governor of the whole games, if you will. So he's, I don't know. You can start assuming very early in the book that he's being favorited and he's getting special treatment, right? And you find out very quickly that's exactly what's happening. So you end up finding, I'm trying to think of how I want to brief this. So you end up discovering him. He ends up discovering Darrow discovering Jackal. It's a very fun story. I encourage you to read it. I encourage you to read the book. The book's phenomenal. But they end up, through a bunch of deceit and amazing strategy from Darrow, he ends up uncovering Jackal, who is like among the ranks of his enemy. We don't know it's the Jackal, but somehow Darrow did. And they're sitting at a table, and they're like, he calls him out, like, you're the Jackal. And he's like, oh shit, how did you know? So in this moment, you've got Darrow, who physically, in this moment, strategically has won. He's in charge of the situation. Jackal is like on his heels. He was caught. So this is huge. This is like probably the most pivotal moment in the book. So they're in this moment. Darrow ends up taking a knife and stabs it down on the hand of Jackal and like locks him there. And he says, hey, as a Jackal, do what Jackals do and cut your wrist off. That's the only way you're going to escape the situation. Not thinking Jackal would actually do it. Jackal's stupid enough to do it. He literally saws away at his wrist. And the moment he successfully cuts his hand off, the proctor of House Apollo rescues him, takes him, throws him out of a window, and they end up surviving the situation. So now it's like, oh shit, like the whole book basically turns over on its head. Everybody knows who everybody is. You as a reader kind of see the climax now, like, okay, this is it. He has to chase down the Jackal. So let me pause real quick. What were your thoughts in this moment, Jenner? So, like, I don't know. For me, I'm pissed off. Don't play with your food. Don't play with your food. If you're a hunter, kill your prey and then eat. Don't play with your food before you kill it. So I was very frustrated in this moment. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely there was some ego that got in his way from everything that he had fought back for. He had the game right there.
Yeah.
And there's more that gets revealed throughout these next, 2 chapters as there's the pursuit and ultimately the climax. But like you said, the curtains are completely pulled back. We're seeing who all the players are, or getting ready to find out the last few players who they really are. And it doesn't stop. It's very action paced. I liked it. I think the tempo was done very well. But I'm with you. Like, you had it right here. Like, you've fought such a great game. Your strategy has been on point. You've overcome so much adversity, and you pissed it away.
Yeah. I don't even know how to bring you in, Talon. it's there's a lot that has happened between falling in love with Mustang and realizing that the Jackal was in the room. Don't really know how to bring you in.
I'm still trying to think of that myself real quick. But yeah, keep going.
Well, just so.
Go ahead.
Well, just what would you do in that situation? I'm curious. So you're in this, I don't know, in a game or maybe even like a real life situation. You have been flexing because you know this is a show. You know this is a game. You've been flexing to show your merit, to show your capability. You've been carving your insignia in people's furniture and their flags. Like this is all about show. And so he's in this moment. I don't necessarily blame him, but he's in this moment with the jackal. He's won. In this moment, he's won. And so he's trying to like showcase he's the better person. What would you do in that situation? You have the prize right there. Like, what do? Do you just kill him? Do you kill him and say, all right, this is it, I won the game? Or would you play into it a little bit, ensuring that the proctors and those, in Mars see like you are the true leader among leaders?
I'm actually with you on this one, Solace. Don't play with your food. Because that's how you build a arch nemesis / villain arc for a specific character, by letting them live, because you never know how elusive they can be. I understand the pride in a hunt, because as a hunter myself, there is a bit of a satisfaction with stalking your prey, finally doing the takedown, but then you don't just let them go. Because who's to say he's not just going to come back now and just absolutely mess everything up? You've had this whole plan about winning this competition, this game, but now you've ruined it because this guy's going to you've basically thrown a monkey wrench into the works. It's like that meme I've seen where it's the guy riding a bike and then he leans over and sticks a stick in the spokes of his own wheel and then falls over and goes, darn it, whoever, that he's angry. I feel like that could end up being that kind of situation. I mean, you've already done the stalk, you've already done the hunt. It's time to capital, like you said, don't play with your food. It's time to eat.
Yeah. I mean, it gets it gets even more frustrating. So all right. So Apollo takes Jackal and they escape through the window. And as a reader, you're like, damn it. Like, there's like, I don't know, 10 more chapters at this point. What in the world just happened? And you're frustrated, you're mad. He had his moment. Mustang is there. He actually sent Mustang away because he wanted to deal with the Jackal alone. Well, okay. So let's fast forward to the next like major event. Well, he does. He ends up chasing after Proctor, House Apollo. So he ends up chasing after him, finds out that Mustang's actually been captured, and I think the order of events are a little bit off, but work with me here. He finds out that Mustang's been captured. He actually ends up killing the Proctor from House Apollo. It's very cinematic. At least when I read it, I thought it was a very well written, like cinematic moment. He had I completely forgot that he had captured his own Proctor. So Proctor House Mars, he ended up capturing him and taking his grav boots and a couple of his other gear. Well, that's how he defeats House Apollo's Proctor, is he ends up using this knife that ejects from his finger. He ends up using that to get through the helmet to actually puncture the Proctor from House Apollo, and uses his grav boots in order to stay levitating. So he ends up killing that dude, and now it becomes the hunt for Mustang. Like, where is Mustang? Mustang is lost somewhere. So they find out that Mustang is at Olympus. Olympus is like the main, I don't know, I'm going to oversimplify this. It's like the headquarters. It's like, I don't know, the center point, the headquarters of the games. So he ends up finding out that she's being held captive at Olympus. I'm fast forwarding here, Jenner. He goes to the Olympus. He finds Mustang, and he actually sends Mustang out to go hunt down the Jackal. He's like, I'm going to stay here in Olympus while we take over all of the Proctors. He's capturing all the Proctors. I think they killed a few. They were talking about killing the people that were there in Olympus as well. But he sends Mustang away so that, Command and Control, I don't blame him for this. Command and Control, he stayed where most of the action was happening and sent Mustang to get the Jackal. Well, as he sends Mustang away, the Proctor from House Mars, who he lets free, he frees the Proctor. The Proctor ends up revealing that Mustang and Jackal are brother and sister. And so you have this massive epiphany where all these moments in the last like 20, 30, 40 chapters, all these moments you start realizing, oh, that's why she acted weird when she saw Darrow with the jackal for the first time at that table with the stabbed hand. So all this, is happening, the epiphany. Oh crap. Now Darrow's like, shit, she's a traitor. She betrayed me. She's going to go and be with her brother, and now they're going to form an army against me. And so you have, I don't know, a chapter, 2 chapters worth of him preparing the armies. Darrow's like running amok, trying to get everybody, situated. And long story short, Mustang actually comes through. She actually shows up at Olympus with the jackal captured, right? Like, and
so this is the one that actually caught me off guard.
Yeah.
And as you and I were talking earlier, I said, the only thing is there's a lot of tropes that this story follows to a T. Like, you can kind of see where it's going next. And this was the turn that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
I fully expected her to betray him. I fully expected for him to have to kill her. And you got to point out, like, this is the daughter of the governor of Mars, the man who had sentenced his wife to death.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm expecting this full arc going that direction. And so when she shows up with her brother in tow as captive, I was just like, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah. I thought there was at least going to be a battle. Like, I was hoping that there was going to be a last battle between,
right.
I guess, Olympus versus the jackal. And then maybe Mustang would turn on her brother at the last second. We've seen several movies that kind of do that. But Mustang would turn on the jackal and, like, I don't know, kill him or capture him in the last moment. I thought there was going to be some, like, heroic situation between the Mustang and the jackal. But my first criticism of this book is it was very anticlimactic. Like,
yes,
it was just out of nowhere. She's like, oh, and there's Mustang. Oh, and she has the jackal in tow. End of chapter. Like, what?
Yeah, I want to know how that confrontation went down.
Yeah, exactly. I want to know how Mustang captured the jackal. Like, I don't know. That's significantly important to the story.
Sounds almost like bad blood between siblings, potentially.
So they were okay. I do think that they were blood brother and sister, but I think they were what's the word? Disranged or what word am I trying to think of? Where they weren't close. They had reason. Estranged. Thank you so much. They had reasons to not like each other. Long story short, and so I think there was never really a loyalty between them, but she absolutely knew that her brother was the jackal the entire time. And so the question was, why didn't she ever reveal that? When they first started talking about the jackal, why didn't she say, like, oh, hey, buddy, that's my brother. Let me see if I can negotiate. Or, like, I don't know. Like, this story is a story about people not telling their shit when, like, the moment they have it. Like, Darrow should have told Cassius that he killed Julian immediately. I feel like Mustang should have told Darrow that Jackal was her brother immediately. This was just a weird moment towards the end of the book. I don't know. I think I've already asked you, Jenner, but, like, overall thoughts on just that whole exchange?
Yeah, it was very anticlimactic. It was to the reader, there's a lot left unsaid, and I don't know if we get into that in a side story, in the sequel book. If they kind of have a moment or, like, they're out to dinner or something. He's just like, hey, like, so tell me again, how did you subdue your brother? Like, yeah. I want that as the reader here, but, like, it's the game, and then the game is over. Boom, it ends. Fanfare, all that, people coming, and it's just like, hold up, how did this happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that basically brings us, we're just now at the main event number 4. So the last, I don't know, 45 minutes, we were on main event number 3, the Institute. So here's number 4, rising as a leader. So Darrow unites his peers to overthrow the oppressive structures within the Institute, using his cunning and empathy to inspire loyalty and cooperation. He wins the final battle, securing his position and proving his capability as a leader among the Golds. And so the one point I wanted to bring up here, Jenner and Talon, is I think this is where the story kind of now becomes the Patriot, right? So he ends up like being estranged from House Mars. We talked about Mustang rescuing his body. The rest of the book, like half of the book, is like the Patriot. He gets the oath breakers, right? He gets the
vagabonds.
Yeah, he gets the vagabonds, and they don't have uniforms. They have just whatever ragtag, gear they can throw on. He ends up etching his is it sling blade?
Yes.
Sling blade. Yeah, he ends up etching the sling blade and like everything he can. So there's this fear, the fear of the Reaper. So he's also known as the Reaper. So there's this fear of the Reaper, and they're coming for him. So it has a very huge like Patriot vibe. But yeah, he ends up taking this ragtag army and wins the game. Wins the game with a bunch of rejects and slaves, that are a part of each house. And so I guess overall response, Jenner, to like the Patriot theme of this, of like this ragtag army, how much do you think that plays into Darrow's leadership, the whole thread of the story? Like, did it need to be a ragtag army for it to matter for Darrow?
That is a very good question. For his ultimate goal, right, for where he's trying to get to, no, he needs to just win the game, right? He's trying to get the highest position of power to be influential to help bring the society to its knees.
Yeah.
For character development, right, we talk about, people who are in leadership. It's one thing to be in leadership when you have authority over others. It's another to inspire people that are your peers.
Yeah.
And to bring them up. And we see him doing this not as a Gold would do it. Everything that we've been introduced to the society and how they handle business, he's not behaving like a Gold at this point. You earn your place and you're now one of us, and what you've done in the past is gone. This is your chance for redemption and honor, because in this game, if they've deserted or if they've gone astray, they're shamed. Yeah. Right. And they're not going to bring any honor to their family through this. It's going to affect their political standing. You have all these other tropes that fall into it. And he's kind of taken all that chaff and just shaping them up into being an army. He's clothing them. He's feeding them. These are people who are destitute and hungry. So, again, not having read the rest of the series, to see where his character is going to go, I think it's crucial for this character development.
Yeah.
But for his end goal, no, he just needed to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Talon, I personally, I agree with Jenner 100% of what he said. I think the story is what it is as a reader because of him taking the lowest of the low, inspiring that leadership, like Jenner said, and being able to take over these gods at each one of these houses. He frees the slaves, gives them freedom. It's very, very, again, the Patriot, very Braveheart. It's very like, free the oppressed, and they'll be your top fighters, your most inspired fighters. It's that concept, but seeing them basically, and it's also like Game of Thrones too, right? But having this wave of ragtag army just take over house over house over house, and ultimately all these proctors, these gods that are in Olympus, he did it with a bunch of losers, right? I don't know, like how many movies have you seen like that this is, it makes the story fun. It makes it, something otherworldly almost.
Star Wars almost too.
Yeah.
You can actually put that one in there because the rebellion is made up of nobodies that just believe that they need to take down the Empire. I mean, there's still, remnants of the Jedi Council and everything within there, but
sure.
I mean, the whole thing is like Jenna said, you can just win the game. But why do it yourself when you can get other people to do it for you as well?
Yeah.
So that could be another end. I don't know, because I haven't read the book or really don't know anything about the series. That could be something that maybe plays out later on. I don't know necessarily like a deception, like, oh, I'm going to sell them all out and throw them under the bus and just win the game and just get away on my own. But it sounds like to me that could lead to something like that. Or maybe, like Jenna was saying, that this is more pivotal for like character development. It could be he gets to that point where there is a character development point where it's, does he betray the rebellion that he's built to save himself maybe later on? I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's the underdog story, right?
It is.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's 100% the underdog story. So we didn't really go into details on what the game was.
Yeah.
But ideally, you would think to win the game, you want to ally yourself with the best and the strongest, because you're locked in this feudal war, basically. And it takes, of course, I think they said 8 to 9 months is how long this particular game played out. But you have very primitive weaponry, and the whole idea is to capture the other house's standard. Like, each house has a standard, and if you can take that house's standard and enslave their people, they fall under you. And the idea of the game was to teach these students or cadets who are going to become Peerless Guard the history of the world and the rise and fall of societies and what lessons we had to learn here on Earth, over centuries, all in one quick lesson. That's the idea. That's the game. So ideally, you would think alliances and, getting the strongest warriors, getting the best hunters, being able to provide, being able to get resources. And so you have this underdog that he gets to be primus of his house at first. He's the leader. He's in charge. He starts inspiring there. He is then overthrown. He's destitute. He's left for dead. And then just, picks himself up from the ashes, finds people like him, inspires them, teaches them how to be better, teaches them how to be warriors, teaches them how to strategize. And then it's on from there, and they start winning battles and they start taking things back, and he's houseless, right? He's doing all this. He doesn't have a house. He doesn't have a standard. Like, he still can't win until he gets his standard back.
Yeah.
So there's that whole redemption story there for him.
Yeah. It feels very much like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones.
I was about to say that, actually.
Yeah.
It took the words right out of my mouth.
It's like House Stark, right? Like he's not part of House Stark. He's like a nobody. He has to get the army of the North, and yeah, I feel like it's the same kind of concept here. But I haven't read books 2 through 6, so I don't know this. But I also think it's foreshadowing. I think now that they're out of the games, which we'll get into here in a second, now that they're out of the games and the real war can begin, Darrow, actually overthrowing the societies, I feel like it's foreshadowing. I feel like he's going to have the opportunity to take a bunch of like Reds, create a Red Army, right? These kind of like non-godlike individuals, and overthrow the society. I think we're on to something. quite honestly. So, and with that, let's get into the last main event. It kind of sums up where we're at, the revelation and future implications. With his new status and influence, Darrow prepares to continue his mission to dismantle the corrupt society from within. The book ends with Darrow poised to take on greater challenges, setting the stage for the ongoing rebellion and the larger conflict against the Gold's oppressive rule. So in the book, he defeats the Jackal. The games are over. They're all in Olympus, and it's like nothing ever happened. Like okay, cool, awesome. Line up, let's celebrate. You graduated, whatever. Well, as the winners, and really everybody who survives the games will be basically drafted again. They're given the opportunity to serve in these capacities within the houses officially, not for stupid games, but officially serving in these houses. And so Darrow is the winner. He's the primus. He's the best of the best. He gets to choose whatever the hell he wants to choose. Well, lo and behold, the drafter of House Apollo and the Augustus houses, and basically the mastermind of all of the corruption that was happening within the games. This is Augustus. The mastermind comes to him and basically gives him an offer that he cannot refuse. Again, remember, listener, remember that Darrow's ultimate goal is to get high into the ranks to overthrow society. Well, the leader, Augustus, his son is Jackal, his daughter is Mustang. He's the mastermind behind all the bad shit. He gives Darrow an offer that he cannot refuse. Fleets, the ultimate training, the ultimate scope and responsibility. He's going to fly spaceships, which up to this point, nothing's happened in space. This is not a space book, right? We're on Mars, but that's about it. Nothing else is sci-fi about this. So he's given all these responsibilities, assets, and says, look, if you bend a knee and you pledge your allegiance to me, you can have all these things. And I think this is where we lose people, right? We lose people.
Yep.
Darrow, we're on his book. Like, we're on his page the entire time. This entire book, we're like, yeah, Darrow, hero, protagonist. He ends up bending the knee to Augustus. And he literally joins the enemy. And I can't blame him for doing that. Because, again, his mission is to overthrow all of it. So he needs the highest position possible. But for him to join the enemy to do so, oh my God, gut-wrenching. Gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
Jenner, respond.
So, yes, I'm excited. We're finally going to get some space in my space book. This was a hard pill for me to swallow, because even though it's written from the mindset that he's making the ultimate sacrifice, I feel like everything we've just gone through, our character has learned nothing. Right. He won the game his way. He went against the norms. He played outside the box. He walked in the shadows, so to speak. And yes, this opportunity presents itself, but I feel like everything this kid, because he is a kid, I think it's important to point out to the listener here that he's 16 from the time the game starts to the time the game ends. He's between 16 to 18 years old. So this is a kid, but he has won the game by playing by his rules. And now he's just going to fall back in. It didn't sit well with me. I didn't like it. To me, it felt like it was a departure from his character.
Yeah. Yeah. We have another member who unfortunately was not able to make it tonight, but just to quote Tanker Gibbs, good book. I have my reservations about the series. Sorry, he's on vacation with the family, bad reception. I'm pretty damn sure the reservation about the series comes from the ending.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee you. The book is I would say like a 9 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. But if you just take the last, this thing that me and Jenner are talking about, like, I don't know, 5 out of 10, 4 out of, like, no, like
the
this.
only saving grace I want to give him here, is, and this is just Jenner's conjecture.
Yeah.
He needs to ally himself because he has made a mortal enemy in this book.
Yeah.
He needs to ally himself where he will get the training he needs, because he knows he cannot defeat this other character in a duel. He's admitted that. He's lost to this character. So I could see this as a desperate act also of self-preservation. But it's still a hard sell for me.
Yeah. Talon, what do you do? You have the opportunity. So any house, any responsibility, any scope, anything that you want, anything at all. But the enemy.
Also, remember, Talon, this is the man that ordered his wife's execution.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it to get that?
Absolutely wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
That's because that's the goal. Like I was saying before with the whole thing with the the little love going between him and Mustang.
Yeah.
The reason that I'm doing what I'm doing, starting to fight a rebellion against these houses to kind of dismantle everything, is purely for my wife. The mission is not accomplished yet. The mission is to destroy, what was his name?
Jackal?
Not Jackal, the other guy.
Augustus.
The father. Augustus.
Augustus, yeah.
He is the mission. Now, okay, now this is actually where it's kind of messing with my brain a little bit, because it's at the same time, can I use his benevolence, in a sense, as a weapon against him? Maybe that's what Darrow's thinking is. And did he sell out his little ragtag rebellion group for this power?
So in this moment, everybody's on their own. The games are over, and he even deliberately, Pierce Brown deliberately writes that it's like a divorce. Like, it's almost like the games didn't even exist. People are doing their own thing. They're getting on trains, leaving. So it's not like there's a ragtag army still lingering. Like, they're all getting their missions and they're taking off. So it's a complete divorce of like the last 8 to 9 months of their lives to now like, oh, okay, so here's what we're doing moving forward.
Okay. Because I was saying, if that did happen, I called it.
Yeah, that would suck.
I can also see this too, almost like a dark side Anakin Skywalker to Emperor Palpatine moment. Whereas the feeling of, because to be able to dismantle a society, a power, like you said, these people are basically like gods. To dismantle the gods, you need their power to do so. But at the same time, is this going to draw him in? Will the power be too much for him to handle? Will it be something that actually draws him in and ends up becoming an ally of them and falling down the path, basically becoming Darth Vader in a sense? If you think about it, this could be that kind of character arc. So I think from then on, because I'm definitely going to be reading the book now.
Yeah, we did it. We did it, Jenner.
Yeah. We got to convert. All right.
All right. So definitely going to be reading it to figure out more of what's going on. But I have a feeling that the next book, if it follows a lot of what's going on there, that's going to be the main character development. Does he fall in and become what he hates the most? Does he end up siding with him, or does he do a Luke Skywalker and pull the light side card and go, okay, now I'm going to use the power that's given to me to actually truly fight back, to dismantle to do what I've set out to do. It's I feel like, yeah, the next couple of books are going to be definitely him.
So let me ask you this, Talon, based on what you say, because I like that idea, and again, I've not read Beyond, so I don't know, but when he bends the knee, basically there's this, passage of words that he has to say, right, to swear fealty.
Yeah.
And then Augustus says to him, I'm not going to read the full quote, but the last sentence in the quote that he says to Darrow, knowing everything that you have been told just, in this sitting and what this man is to him, rise for glory, for power, for conquest and dominion over lesser men. Rise, my son, rise.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely...
What does that do to that character's psychology? What does that do to Darrow? Because the author doesn't really go into Darrow's mindset in that. But where do you think his headspace is?
Ah, damn. That could be in a lot of different places. I know personally in mine, it would be okay, I fooled them. Now I have access to the, like Solus was saying, the fleets, the armies, the training, everything that I need. All I have to do is bide my time a little bit to get a hold of this power and basically start a military coup. But it could be too, maybe within that point, going into the next books, as he's learning, he's training with them, he's learning how to command the fleets, he's learning how to operate, he sees the power and the wealth out of it. Because from what I understand, from what I've heard, he doesn't have a house right now, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
He's
created the renegade group that he's with has created an alias for him in a false house that he's the last surviving member of.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe start that own house and carry it on. It's almost like he could fall into that trap. He could end up like Anakin and fall into the power of the dark side and maybe end up turning evil. And then later on in the books, there's more characters that get developed into it that have to end up overthrowing him. He becomes the new Palpatine or something. Or maybe he is just biding his time to get the resources he needs to complete his mission. That's kind of how I see it. I definitely see we got a dark side, light side kind of fight in that. I do see a lot of Star Wars, actually. It's like Hunger Games and Star Wars had a kid kind of thing.
Yeah.
So many of those
it's
references.
Dynamic.
Yeah. So the next book is called The Golden Sun. So you can kind of, I think it's a play off of what Jenner just read us, right? Like he's the son of Augustus at this point, theoretically, and of course he's golden. He's officially a gold. I'm super interested in reading book 2, and I think that's where I'm going to wrap up kind of this podcast. Is as we look forward, there's a lot of loose ends. So one, you still got Cassius. Cassius is still alive. I feel like that's going to have to be something that needs to be remedied. The last interaction that Cassius has with Darrow is very much like one of us is going to die. Like, I will fight you and you're going to fight me, and one of us is walking out and one of us is dying. So I think that's very foretelling, foreshadowing of whatever is going to happen. Yeah. Well, you kind of have two nemesis at this point. You've got Cassius, and then they didn't kill the Jackal. The Jackal was captured by his own sister. Yeah. So you've got, and that's internal. That's internal to House Augustus, or to the Augustus. So you've got Cassius, you got the Jackal, and you're going to have to betray Mustang. If you truly are going to overthrow society, you're going to have to betray Mustang. Right? So, like, there's so much intrigue for the next couple books.
There's one character that we have not mentioned throughout this entire episode, and I'll be honest, this was probably my favorite character of the book.
Oh, yeah?
And it's alluded to that this character knows, or has started to put together, that there's more to Darrow, that he may not be who he is.
Is it Severo?
Severo is a well-written character.
It is, yeah.
Was my favorite arc in the book. I love watching him grow and develop into who he is. Yeah. And I'm not going to talk about, for the listeners, I'm not going to talk about how he starts to put the pieces together, but it's all kind of wrapped up in that final chapter, and he kind of lets it be known to Darrow that I might have doctored something up for you.
Yep. I will give a Reader's Digest version because it is super important. It's a good pull. Severo is like a lesser gold. He ends up being successful because of his wits. He ends up being like, discreet. Clandestine is like his strength. He's able to overthrow a lot of battles or win a lot of battles because of him, and they call the Howlings or the Howlers.
The Howlers, yeah.
Yeah, him and the Howlers are like his little like army, but they're discreet, hidden, secret shadows. Well, Severo is the son of the Proctor of Mars, so there's a little bit of a dynamic there. But there's language, and I'm going to end with this, Jenner. There's a language that is gold-like, and there's language that is red or slave-like. So you say like gory damn, like gory is like a prefix, is like the gold way of saying, well, that's gory damn well pleasant, or that's gory damn well awesome, whatever you want to say. So gory,
like Goram and Firefly.
Yep. Yeah, and then the red language is bloody. Well, that's bloody damn, bloody this, bloody that. Well, there's a very awesome moment in the book where you find out that Titus, we're not going to get into that story because we totally missed it. Titus is a red who is also carved. That is huge. That is a huge point in the story, because there's more than just Darrow. Darrow is not the only carved red. So you find out that Titus was also red. He ends up killing Titus in a very public way. It's crazy. So but he knows that because of the word bloody. Well, Severo, he edits out part of a video feed. I'll be very short here. He edits a part of the video feed out where Darrow is quoted saying bloody. And he tells Darrow, he's like, hey, I heard something you said that didn't really add up, so I just went ahead and deleted it anyways. And you're like, oh shit, Severo knows. So that's what Jenner's referencing. Pretty cool moment in the book. So, and with that, I've got 15 other questions I was going to ask about how it ties into current day society and gender roles, and it was going to be a really awesome conversation. We're already an hour and 15 minutes into this. I think we've had a pretty awesome discussion. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Any final thoughts? And we'll actually go to Talon first. So Talon, again, you have no precedent for this book. You haven't read it. All you've heard was the last hour and 15 minutes. Any last second thoughts that you want to share about Red Rising by Pierce Brown?
I actually look forward to reading it. This is kind of right up my alley, the kind of character arcs and stuff that are built into, especially with sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi guy, but it's definitely something I'm going to have to read into to kind of get, because I'm the kind of guy that like gets vested in characters and stuff like that. So this definitely is something that I'm definitely going to have to read.
Well, good, man. You will enjoy it. You'll find something in there that you will enjoy. I almost promise you that.
Oh, I know I will.
Jenner,
wrap us up, man. Last second thoughts.
I definitely recommend this book. It's very low sci-fi, at least the first book is. But if you are a fan of Game of Thrones style political intrigue, this is definitely going to be right up your alley. We spoiled a lot, but there's so much that we did not go into. Mm-hmm. There's characters we didn't even touch on that you're going to love, you're going to hate, you're going to cry when things happen. It's not a long read. It's definitely worth picking up and giving a go.
Yeah, 100%. Let's tie this into Star Citizen. So we know about the Mesa regime, right? We know about the stories, high level. We know about the stories leading up to 2954, right? The current year in Star Citizen. I think there's a lot of political intrigue at play in Star Citizen. As we get into the Messers, the overthrowing of the Messers, all the impacts of the alien life forms, the Vandal versus, right, the Shion and Banu, all of it. I think we can expect something similar in the sense of political intrigue, overthrowing bureaucracies. I don't know. I'm super excited. I'm not going to read into the fact that CIG's community manager recommended Red Rising whenever I asked. I'm not going to read into that thinking, okay, this is going to play a direct role. But this recommendation did come from CIG's community management team. So take with that what you will.
Big giant grain of salt.
Yeah, like with everything else in Star Citizen. So, well, with that, we're going to wrap up. Next steps. We're going to talk about the next book. I can almost guarantee we're going to keep reading on to book 2. It's too good to drop. But I'm going to take a poll in the Soul Provision org. Again, feel free to join Soul Provision. It's www.robertspaceindustriescom/orgs/provision. Join our org, join our Discord, become part of the conversation, vote on what you want their next book to be. But mid-August to late August, we'll do another one of these ARC episodes. Let me know what you think. Respond. Email us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com. Let me know what you liked and what you didn't like about this episode. I want to personally thank Jenner Dar. Thank you so much for joining us, as well as Talon Nervar.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah. I hope everybody enjoyed. Y'all have a great night and safe travels as you traverse beyond the verse. Take care, everybody.